Roller coasters are supposed to be comfortable, thrilling, and enjoyable rides that are supposed to get your adrenaline pumping. Roller coasters are made up of these two different materials, steel and wood. Wooden coasters were implemented in the early 20th century as the form of material to be used for roller coaster tracks, but other coaster manufacturers decided to test the limits and create roller coasters out of new material. On June 14th, 1959, the Matterhorn Bobsled at Disneyland opened to the public, and it broke the record of being the first roller coaster that was made out of steel tubes. There were coasters that were made out of metal prior to the opening of the Matterhorn, but those were not made out of steel tubes. The hope that came with creating steel coasters was that it would provide a smoother ride experience, but regardless of what different track design coasters are made of, coaster tracks are subject to wear and tear, meaning that the track can become less stable after a long period of time of it being open. When a train traverses a roller coaster track, there are high levels of pressure that are put on the supports, causing some roughness over time. But there are exceptions to this. Although older wooden coasters are more susceptible to wear and tear by nature, steel coasters can also be susceptible to wear and tear, and can get quite rough, regardless of its age. When roller coasters get rough, some parks can decide to retract them. Retracking can either be done by the same manufacturer, and they can also be done by a different manufacturer, depending on the park's choice. Most of the time, retracking has helped make a coaster a lot smoother. In this video, I will be ranking the top 5 roller coasters that need to be retracked the most, based on the doability of doing it, and how rough a certain coaster is getting. After I rank each coaster, Canobie Coaster will be giving his opinion on whether he agrees or not. Please make sure to also subscribe to his channel for more coaster content. But without further ado, let's get into the video. Number 5. Rougarou, the B&M Floorless at Cedar Point. Just as I said earlier, steel coasters are also susceptible to wear and tear just like some wooden coasters. This is the case with Rougarou at Cedar Point. This coaster has a lot of potential considering its layout and the park it's currently at, but over the years, this B&M Floorless has become exceedingly rough. I'm only going based off of when I rode this in 2018, but last time I rode it, it had a very uncomfortable rattle and vibration that made it extremely hard for me to enjoy the ride. The end of the layout also had some minor jackhammering from what I could recall. Honestly, retracting Rougarou would be a hit or miss for Cedar Point, because their only option is to tear down the existing layout and get it replaced with new B&M track. But that also comes with a small chance of the track wearing out and becoming a rough ride again. Because if they use different track and trains from a different manufacturer, then it would basically be them building a whole new ride from scratch. In this case, I think they should take the risk and replace the B&M track, just like Universal did with the Incredible Hulk coaster. This would definitely be a risk for them, and cost a lot of money, but at least it would rescue Rougarou from its roughness and restore its great potential back. But do I think this will happen? It's very unlikely. Cedar Point has other priorities right now, and I don't know if Rougarou has been getting as many complaints about the roughness, so I don't know what Cedar Point will do about it. But it would at least save this fantastic layout. But because Cedar Point is at a park with a lot bigger and more important roller coasters, it might not be worth it for Cedar Point. Mike, what do you think about Rougarou being retracked?
I enjoy Rougarou, but it definitely gets lost in the shuffle in Cedar Point's deep coaster lineup. When the end of this ride's service life reaches, I suspect the park will be more likely to tear it down and use that ride's sizable plot of land for a new attraction, especially because Cedar Point has used up all its free land.
Number 4. Wildcat at Lake Compounce. This is by far one of the 2 roughest wooden coasters I've ridden, and the ride's age sure shows. Mike, what do you think about Wildcat being retracked?
Wildcat has never been smooth, and the recent retracking somehow made the coaster rougher than ever. I don't think this coaster is the strongest layout to begin with, so I would definitely enjoy seeing this coaster get RMC'd. But realistically, I think the park would be more likely to try retracting this ride yet again, maybe with wood or maybe with Titan track, before overhauling this historic ride completely.
Number 3. TMNT Shellraiser at American Dream's Nickelodeon Universe. Shellraiser is a bit of a special case compared to the other coasters on this list that need to be retracked. Usually, roller coasters use ground footers that connect to the surface in order to provide more support and stability for the track support beams. But the way American Dream designed Shellraiser was without the ground footers, and instead, the support beams directly sit on the concrete foundation of the floor. This makes the track less stable, causing the support beams to move back and forth, causing a shift in track pressure, which is what causes the roughness on Shellraiser. There are some very jarring potholes during the pullouts, especially the one that occurs on the way up to the inversion after the main drop. This section is rough due to the high positive G's pulled on the valley after the drop. The only way American Dream will be able to fix this roughness problem with Shellraiser is by ripping out the entire ride so they can place ground footers under the support beams. But since American Dream is really struggling financially right now, I do not see this as a feasibility. Maybe once American Dream starts stepping up their game and making more money, then we can see this potentially happening in the near future. But the fact that American Dream is also struggling to maintain their current rides like Sandy's Blasting Bronco and Skyline Scream, I don't see how they'll manage to be able to fix Shellraiser's track. It's a real shame, because this ride is at a great park with some great potential, but it's so rough that it's borderline unbearable for me to enjoy. Mike, what do you think about the feasibility about Shellraiser being retracked?
Considering the financial difficulties of the American Dream Mall and how new this attraction is, I don't think Shellraiser will be retracked anytime soon. It definitely would improve if the shuffling and potholes were addressed, but I just don't see it happening.
Number 2. Matterhorn Bobsleds at Disneyland Park. This is by far one of the signature icons of Disneyland, and is a historic landmark, taking the record of the world's first steel tubular track. The track was built using metal tubes where the wheels would grip around it. Although the Matterhorn is a steel coaster, it has gotten exceedingly rough over the years. I would say it may be even a bit rougher than Shellraiser from what I could recall. Last time I rode this in 2018, there were random and painful potholes throughout the course of the layout. During random points in the layout, the track jackhammers you violently, and I screamed out of pain every single time I hit the pothole, and it was painful. I know that Disney might be hesitant to retrack this ride, because the track is technically a piece of history. The Matterhorn track was the first steel tubular track ever built, so keeping it around will fulfill the historic aspect of the coaster. But at the same time, retracking it would also make it a lot more enjoyable of a ride for guests. In terms of what manufacturers could use to retrack it, I would say they can get Vekoma to replicate a similar track design to its existing one. From what I've heard, Vekoma has been quite flexible with Disney, but I could be wrong. If not, I'm sure there are other manufacturers Disney can hire to retract the Matterhorn while maintaining its historical significance. In this case, I don't really think this will happen. The Matterhorn track has a historical significance that Disney may not want to get rid of. But it is possible. What are your thoughts about the Matterhorn being retracked, Mike?
Based on this ride's historical significance to both the park and the amusement industry, I suspect Disney will retract the Matterhorn in the future, and I think it may be due for a track replacement soon given its age.
Number 1. Grizzly at King's Dominion. This is by far the roughest and most painful roller coaster I've ridden in my life. Like I said in my King's Dominion ranking video, this coaster has a lot of potential. It has a classic wooden coaster layout, and it has great setting that takes place in the woods. But this coaster is so rough and painful. During the tight valleys of the ride messes with your cartilage, and jackhammers you up and down so hard, to the point where I even felt a spinal snap to the back of my neck. Since this coaster has so much potential, I think doing a GCI retracking like they did with Ghost Rider would be the perfect option to counter the roughness of this ride. If they get GCI to retract this coaster, I hope they do it like Ghost Rider, and not like they did to Wildcat at Lake Compounce, because believe it or not, that retracking made it even worse. I heard some people saying that they wanted Grizzly converted into an RMC hybrid, but that would clearly not make any sense, because there's an RMC hybrid in the exact same park, and it is also right next to Grizzly too. So that's why I think doing a GCI retracking would be the best option. This ride still may be a bit bumpy after the GCI retracking, but at least it will deliver the lovable vintage type of bumpiness that most elite wooden coasters have. Do I think this is going to happen? Yes, it's very likely. If it happens though, not too many people will probably talk about it that much, because Grizzly isn't very popular, but it does have a high possibility of happening in my opinion. Mike, what do you think about Grizzly being retracked?
My last rides on Grizzly in 2018 were enjoyable, but those who have ridden it the past few years have said it's gotten pretty darn rough. I think it has a great layout and setting, so it is worth retracking. I also don't think King's Dominion will want to remove another coaster in the near future on the heels of Volcano, and because the park already has an RMC and Twisted Timbers, I don't see this ride getting another Iron Horse treatment.
Those are the coasters that need to be retracked the most. Please put down your thoughts in the comments below on whether you agree with our opinions or not. It would be greatly noted. Thanks for watching, and see you all next time.